Hey everyone, welcome to the Our Jahaan podcast. This is one of our inaugural episodes and I'm super excited. My name is Maheen Qureshi and I started this venture that I've been envisioning for several years earlier in 2025 called Jahaan Institute. And in Persian or Farsi and several other languages, Jahaan means universe or world. And really the vision is about bringing people closer together in our world and learning from each other. And today we have a great guest with us, Cristina Stensvaag. And we met in a community focused on women's coaching and leadership development through Be Profoundly You by Ali Levin. And I was intrigued when I met Cristina, and here's why. So Cristina has been navigating some changes in her career and her life. And I thought that it would be great to talk to her today and share her story and talk about her organization with all of you, because we can learn from each other as we're all navigating change as well. Cristina, welcome to the podcast, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for doing this with me. And let me tell everybody a little bit more about you. So Cristina is a former tech executive turned leadership coach, and she has co-founded a company called Leader Reps. And we're going to hear more about what they do today. And one of the reasons, Cristina, that I thought it'd be fabulous to have you here today is that I could really relate to what you were sharing when we were in our coaching program, which is that a lot of times new managers, as well as seasoned people leaders, don't really get the leadership development coaching and training to really be successful in their work and their jobs. And leadership is about so much more than really also just doing a job. We can be leaders in our families, in our communities, in teams that we're a part of, whether they're sports teams or work teams. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from you as to how you see and approach self-leadership and leadership development. But first, I want to dig in and we want to learn a little bit more about you. So tell us about yourself, where you are, how you grew up, anything that you want to share about yourself to get started.
Sure. So I grew up in Virginia, and I'm actually still in Virginia, in Virginia Beach, near the ocean. I love being in nature, whether it's the beach or in the mountains. It's really where I do my best thinking and my best reflecting. And when I feel like the world is a little bit overwhelming, that's where I can go. And I'm lucky enough to have family in Colorado too, so I get kind of the best of both worlds, beach and mountains. I am in Virginia Beach with my husband and my 10-year-old daughter and our dog. I would say that I'm a lifelong learner. I am a coach. I'm a mom. I'm a nurturer. I find my passion. I love supporting people and helping them to grow. As I was thinking about this and sort of thinking through what I wanted to talk about, I was thinking about what I majored in college. I majored in anthropology, which in hindsight really makes sense because I've always been fascinated about how people work in groups, how groups thrive. And that curiosity has about human behavior has really evolved into a career building not only products, but also teams, and then led me to start Leader Reps.
Wow, that's fascinating. I just learned something new about you myself. And it's funny that you say that. While I don't have a degree in anthropology, I realized later in my adult life, like how fascinated I am by just human history, the intersections between cultures and people. And again, that comes right back to the vision for Jahaan, right? Which again means universe or world. And we have so much in common. And I think when we unpack that and get to know people at a deeper level, we find that out. And there are some really awesome, unique differences that we have, and those can be celebrated too. So I love that we started off on that note of where you began with your field of study and how it actually makes great sense what you're doing with your work now. Cristina, I'd love to hear from what I know of you. You've had this corporate career that, was fast paced and exciting and all the things that ups and downs that come with the corporate world. Tell us a bit about your career journey and what has led you to co-found this firm with your partners. And then let's talk a little bit more about the work that you're doing in Leader Reps.
Great. So, as you mentioned earlier, my background is really in building products and leading teams in tech companies. I've worked in a fast paced startup all the way through a large global enterprise. And as I progressed in my career, I moved into a people management role. I've had several of those roles. And I started to see a pattern where people were promoted into management based on their success as an individual contributor. But they weren't really taught how to lead. They were kind of left to figure it out on their own. And that actually holds true for me as well. When I first became a people manager, I was sent to a workshop, a 1 day workshop, and I learned some theory and I got a few tools that I could use. But as soon as I got back to my job, I put that workbook in a drawer and I went to my next meeting and it was business as usual. But what I realized is that leadership isn't can't be taught in a 1 day workshop. Leadership isn't something that you learn once. It's something that you need to practice daily, and it's a lifelong journey. The seeds that were planted for leader ups really came from that realization. We make leadership practice focused and not just theory focused. We really think about leadership as a muscle that can be strengthened with daily reps, hence the name Leader Reps. Our mission is really to build stronger leaders and stronger teams by doing that strengthening of the leadership muscle.
Mm-hmm,
We
mm-hmm.
want to close the gap between leadership knowing and leadership doing.
Wow, that really resonates. So leadership knowing versus leadership doing. And then I really like how you talked about the reps, the daily reps, because I think that shows us that we need to keep practicing, right? Building and strengthening those muscles. And I think it also lets us be human in that none of this is an immediate, thing that happens overnight. It takes time to become the leader that you want to be, right? And we were also talking about continuous learning for leaders who've been at it for, gosh, it could be even decades. So no one is really completely done learning. And so it's not only okay, it's completely expected that it is going to take time, as long as you're being intentional about being and becoming that leader that you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, leadership it's a journey. And there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and there will always be things to learn about. We really embrace the idea of consistency over intensity. So, in this case, it would be, you can go and learn everything you want to learn and read all the books, but if you're not practicing that on a consistent basis, it doesn't get you anywhere. So small, consistent work every day is really the path to exceptional leadership. And I truly believe that, and Leader Reps absolutely leans into that. While we target new people managers and really help to develop the foundational skills that they need to become great leaders, there's this idea of a beginner's mindset. So you can have years and years of experience as a leader. But if you come to it with this beginner's mindset that there's always something new to learn, that every day is day one, you'll never stop growing as a leader.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's healthy for people to be curious and constantly learning, no matter what stage of life they're at. So that definitely resonates too. So let's talk a little bit more about these daily practices. And what are some of the maybe even pitfalls or challenges that you see that people are not so equipped with that you are really trying to bring forth in your trainings in Leader Reps, right? So what are some of the, again, daily practices and skills that you all are training people on?
So there are skills that new managers absolutely need, these foundational skills. And then there are skills that even as a seasoned manager, we don't always do very well. So focusing on new managers, they're really faced with this huge shift in identity. They're going from doing to leading. And they've gone from being an individual contributor to being responsible for supporting others' successes. And often they're leading people who used to be their peers. So there's an entirely new skill set for them to learn, holding one-on-one meetings with their directs, setting clear expectations. And number one is giving feedback. We talk a lot about feedback and how important it is. Even the most seasoned leaders struggle with feedback. They don't give enough reinforcing feedback. They might be hesitant to give redirecting feedback because they've let themselves believe that it's mean and that directs will react badly to it. So sometimes they choose their own comfort over helping their directs develop in their roles. So that's really, I would say, out of all of the skills, feedback, giving enough feedback and giving clear feedback is absolutely the most important.
Mm-hmm. That is a big word, the feedback word. Absolutely. It's so important. And I think people are hungry for the feedback. Talk to us a little bit more about this 5-to-1 ratio of the reinforcing vis-a-vis redirecting feedback and where it stems from. It's pretty interesting what you told me about it.
Yeah. Before we do that, I'd love to get into
Yeah.
one-on-ones a little bit
Yeah,
because
let's do it.
having one-on-ones is really building that foundation of trust and just overall foundation of relationships with your direct reports. When you have that trust, everything else, including giving feedback, gets easier. Kevin Plank, who's the founder of Under Armour, said that trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. And that's why it is such an important thing to not only develop, but nurture with your team and with your direct reports. And if you don't have that trust, no matter what you say in any kind of feedback session, it's not going to land, especially with redirecting feedback. You need to have that trust before you can give good redirecting feedback.
Mhm.
So, yeah, let's talk about the 5-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
We teach leaders to give reinforcing and redirecting feedback in a 5-to-1 ratio because that trust that I mentioned earlier is built through positive reinforcement and growth requires challenge. So that the 5-to-1 ratio is 5 pieces of reinforcing feedback to every 1 piece of redirecting feedback. And that comes from a study that John Gottman, who is one of the founders of the Gottman Institute, and Robert Levinson did on married couples. They discovered the magic ratio of 5-to-1. 5 instances of positive interaction for every 1 instance of negative interaction felt balanced. Anything less than that ratio felt like those interactions were weighted on the negative side. And that ratio really does apply to work relationships as well. As a people manager, it's your job to give feedback. You need to catch people doing things right and tell them. And you must give redirecting feedback. We often forget that feedback is a gift. It helps your direct report grow and improve in their job. So when we challenge our leaders to give the 5-to-1 ratio of feedback, it means that they're giving a balanced amount of reinforcing to redirecting so that when that redirecting feedback is given, it's really heard and it is given as a gift because not only are you pointing out what they need to work on, you're pointing out what they're doing right and you're noticing what they're doing right.
Hmm. That's really great. So when you're doing this training or skill building with the leaders in your current cohort, what approach are you using so that they can learn this and then practice it in their real workplace?
Yeah, we practice reps. We practice it in our cohort calls and we do some role playing and set up some scenarios. So as a trainer, I am the direct report. We'll set up a scenario and the person who is playing the role of the manager thinks through the scenario, uses our clear feedback framework to kind of go through the steps of really giving good, clear feedback that focuses on observable behaviors, impact of that behavior, and the request of what needs to happen next. And really, it's all about reps. It's all about practice. The more you think about this framework, the more you get comfortable starting a conversation. That's often the hardest part is starting that redirecting conversation. The easier it gets and the more you can believe that it is a gift. And the more that you believe that you're giving them a gift, the more it will come across that way. Like anything, it's practice, it's reps.
And the math works. I mean, 5 positive, 1 redirecting, another 5 positive. I mean, obviously, it's not like we're sitting there counting, but really, these are the principles that
Mhm.
you're teaching people, which is pretty powerful. So let's talk a little bit about um, a theme that I think resonates in both of our minds and hopefully with our audience as well. We talk a lot about leading people, leading others. What about leading ourselves?
Self leadership is truly the foundation for every other kind of leadership. You need to know who you are. You need to know what drives you. You need to know your values. And that allows you to lead from a place of authenticity. If you are leading from a place where you're playing a role or pretending like you're something that you're not in your leadership capacity, that's going to come across. You need to know who you are and you need to be able to lead yourself in order to lead others. We have an exercise at Leader Ups where we ask the leaders in our cohort to think about leaders that they admire and the traits that they admire about them. It's a really good way of recognizing the traits that you either want to build or that you have within yourself already as a leader. And then we take that and we ask you to write a leadership identity statement. I am the type of leader who, or I am a leader that, and just write it down. And it's not going to be perfect and it's going to change. And as your career progresses, as your journey as a leader goes on, it absolutely will change. I have multiple versions of my leadership identity statement that I've been throughout the years. And I have it written down on Post-it, lives on my desk. There are edits on that Post-it even as I sort of continue to develop my identity.
Yeah, I love that. As everything else, this is also continuous. Would you mind actually sharing your current leadership identity with
Oh,
us?
yeah, sure. I would love to.
Thanks.
So here's my Post-it. I am a heart-led leader who serves my team through loving support, providing growth opportunities, and creating an environment of trust and accountability.
Taking in what you just shared, I'm hearing some really interesting words together. Loving, accountability, right? So there's some of the soft and emotional, and there's the, if you want to call them hard and sort of tangible, very typical workplace oriented things like accountability. And I love that. Because that is a true balance of being human and also getting, working towards a shared mission and vision in any organization. So thank you so much for sharing your leadership identity. I'd love for everyone to hear more about leader reps and what you're offering. And let's go back to how we started. One of the reasons that I was really interested in bringing you to our audience is it takes courage and it takes some calculated risk taking to make this kind of pivot in your life and your career, right? So you've been a corporate executive leader in technology. You've developed products. And I think when we were chatting on our own, we were talking about how when you develop a product with great teams, it can become kind of like your baby, right? And so, to how you've navigated that change. Because I think a lot of people, Christina, as we know, are going through change right now, whether it's layoffs, whether it's the possibility of needing to move on from their job. And I would love for people to get into an opportunity mindset, right? It can be anxiety producing or inducing. And at the same time, we can refuel ourselves with some self care and some great examples like yourself, right? Of how we can be creative and take what we've learned and then bring it to the market in a way that maybe fills a need or opportunity or gap. So, any thoughts on that you want to share?
So many thoughts. This is a really interesting time where people really are thinking about what can I give? How can I start something of my own? Knowing how fragile sometimes the workplace can be and how you're not always in control of what's going to happen. And I think that It's not easy, but it's easier than it was with all the tools that we have now. Um, and I love security. I love knowing that I have benefits and that I have a steady paycheck. And that really clashed with this voice in my head that I had for years saying, really pushing me to get into education, to take this passion I have for supporting people and helping them grow, and figuring out what that could be. And then, on the other shoulder, I was like, what? You don't, it's too scary. It's unknown. Why would you leave what you have right now? So I knew what my passion was, but stepping away from that executive role with the salary, with the benefits, it wasn't easy. Fortunately, and I really do mean fortunately, the decision was helped with a layoff when I got laid off in late 2024. It kind of gave me the kick that I needed to think about what would be next. And so with that shift, I really traded certainty for purpose. I guess it feels courageous, but in terms of courage, it wasn't a huge revelation. I just kept moving forward. I just kept taking steps and I talked to my coaches. We had conversations in the community that we're both a part of. I thought about what success really means to me. And before I really realized it, I was kind of on the path. I had just kept taking steps and there I was moving forward. I think that clarity doesn't come before courage. It comes through courage. So you're never going to be 100% clear on all of the things if you are with anything with life, really. So you just think about what's the next right step? What's the next step forward? Sometimes you'll change direction, but you'll always learn. Even if it feels like you are taking a step backwards before you take a step forwards, you're always learning. So I had to practice what I now help others build. I still have to practice it daily, trusting myself to take those steps before I felt truly ready. Um, it's still a journey. I'm still learning. I'm still clarifying, but it's been great. It's been inspiring, and I'm back to building things, and I love it.
That is really inspiring. Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing, Christina. So, one of the thoughts that I had a few years ago, too, when I was going from the individual contributor to the people manager, people leader space, and also coming off of a product launch and just various changes in my life, was this voice of like, I'm not an executive. I'm not going to be getting coaching or career coaching. Tell us about how, whether leader reps or any advice you have for people more broadly, if you are a new people manager or wherever you are, maybe you've been at it for a while and you've never had the opportunity to get coaching, right? What are some things that people can do so that it's accessible to everyone?
Well, I'll do a little plug for the Leader Reps newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter, and I think not just Leader Reps newsletters, but there are so many experts and wise people giving information away. I think you can find your coaches in so many different avenues. And I think that, reading is absolutely essential to growing and challenging yourself with daily reps. Think about what you need to learn, what you need to practice, and practice it. Know that you're not going to know everything right away, but by continuing to work out that leadership muscle, it will get stronger. And I think that you can find coaches in so many different places. You can find community. I've learned so much from the Be Profoundly You community, the support I've gotten from members there. So there are certainly steps that even if coaching right now feels inaccessible, there are still absolutely steps that you can take toward becoming that better leader.
Yeah, and I can completely relate. I think we can learn so much from each other. Sometimes you may have a friend that you just know socially, and they might have been at the people leadership journey for a while, have some things that they can share with you, right? And just having a sounding board. So definitely, like, I will check out your newsletter too. Thank you so much for mentioning it. So as we wrap up our awesome conversation today, I can't believe we're wrapping up 2025 soon.
I know.
So this has been an exciting year for you with quite a bit of change. And as you're looking out towards 2026, what is something that you're excited about, Christina?
I personally, So I'll go two kind of directions. One personally is to live what I teach, to lead with clarity, to lead with courage, to lead with care. And 2026 with Leader Ups, I think, is going to be so exciting. We're really living our vision to redefine what leadership development is. It's not a workshop. It can be a workout. It's a process. It's not an event. It's not a one-time thing. It's ongoing. We're building a platform where leaders of all levels can grow and they can focus on the power of consistency over intensity. We have our cohort that is really for new people managers that talks through and practices all the fundamental leadership skills with one-on-ones and building trust and giving feedback, and it just scratches the surface. So this platform that we're building, which we're calling the Arena, our hero Brene Brown has a talk about that, coming from Teddy Roosevelt's speech on the man in the arena. We're building that out, and that will be available starting in early 2026 with community and leader circles and tons of courses and things to rep. So many things going on. I'm really excited about what's coming in 2026.
Wow, I'm getting excited just hearing about all this. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the people that are going to be learning through your circles and your program. And honestly, I find it inspiring right back at me. And that's what I'm hoping is going on for our audience broadly, right? Is as we see more of us real, normal people that are doing things like this, that are taking that first step, and then the second, and then the third that comes from it, right? On maybe it could be an idea you've been playing with for a while, a concept. And I want to say, if it's been with you for a while, pay attention. And in my case, I've had that going on. So I can relate and just take some action. And like Christina's saying, let's not overthink it. Let's have some trust in ourselves, just like we want to build trust with others. And it's okay if we make adjustments. That's all part of the process. So I definitely want to encourage everyone to think creatively, take action, reach out to others and connect, because you'd be surprised how much people are willing to support you and be part of something that you want to co-create. So as we finish up, I do want you to let everyone know, Cristina, how people can learn about Leader Reps. Like, is there a website or a page that they should go to?
Yeah, we do have a website, leaderreps.com, and you can subscribe to our newsletter on the site, learn all about our cohort program, learn about what we're going to be doing with the Arena. I'm happy to answer any questions or, talk to anybody directly. I love talking about this stuff. And Maheen, what you said really resonated in terms of you have that voice. And if you've had that voice for a while, listen to it. Take that first step, see where it goes. Maybe it doesn't go in the direction that you think it will, but yeah, listen to your voice, listen to that intuition.
I love that. That's a great way to wrap up. So thank you so much, Cristina, again, for being one of our inaugural guests on the Jahaan podcast. And thank you to our audience for being here. And we're going to be having more great conversations in the coming weeks and months, and definitely want to hear your thoughts about them. Everyone have an awesome day. Thanks, Cristina.
Thank you.